Namaste, welcome. So I'm Uma Dinsmore-Tuli, and I'm delighted to be speaking to you about the Dasha Mahavidyas, the 10 great wisdom goddesses. And I'm presenting with real joy the sense of how these 10 wisdom goddesses can be understood as offering guidance and deep understanding about the process and unfolding of our lives as women. And what I'm presenting is the ordering and the understanding of these great wisdom goddesses in the form that I present them in Yoni Shakti. And this is a feminist reworking, so it's a fairly unorthodox understanding of the goddesses, and I'm inviting for you to see that each one of them, and in other parts of the course we introduce you to them individually, each one. I have Kali here, the great mother, the great dark mother who is time herself. She's sat here behind me, and in other parts of the course we introduce you to them individually. But I'd like you to see that maybe as a whole and as individuals, each one of these really is not outside of ourselves, where the great wisdom is not outside of ourselves in the form of a goddess that we worship, although we can honor and meditate with each form, the geometric forms and the figurative forms of them as goddesses. But we can also see that when we understand a little about the quality and the nature of each of these great wisdom goddesses, that we can understand a little bit about our own initiatory processes, about our growth and development and deepening into our experience of ourselves as women throughout our whole lives. So I thought it'd be helpful because I'm offering this feminist reworking. In some ways, it's not disrespectful. I'm gratefully and respectfully requesting that each of these different goddesses, they stand as guardians, almost as like a patron saint or a guardian figure for each of these different stages of our lives, or each of these different experiences that we have as women. But that's not a very usual way to see them. So I'm going to let you know a little bit about a more orthodox way to look at the order of the Mahavidyas. And then I'm going to speak a little bit about the female siddhis, the great powers, the initiatory powers of our experiences as women. And then I'll explain why I've presented the Mahavidyas in this very particular order. So ordinarily, you usually meet Kali, the goddess of time and change, the dark goddess. She usually comes first. And Kali is usually followed by Tara. And Tara is she who guides us through troubles. So you usually get Kali and Tara, and then that's usually followed by Shodasi. And Shodasi is the 16-year-old, or she's sometimes also called Tripura Sundari, and that's the beauty of the three worlds. So she is the beauty of the three worlds is this perfect beauty and luscious radiance. So she's usually seen to be the third. So you get Kali, Tara, Tripura Sundari or Shodasi, and then you get Bhuvaneshwari usually is the one who follows next. Bhuvaneshwari is she whose body is the world, Bhu being the earth. So she's the empress, the queen of the world herself, who gives birth to the world and whose body is the world. And Bhuvaneshwari is usually followed by Bhairavi. Bhairavi is the fierce one. Bhairavi is the feminine form of Bhairava, which is the wailing warrior Shiva, who's really powerful, fierce warrior. Then you usually get Chinnamasta, who is the self-decapitated goddess. You see her with her head severed and blood feeding her devotees. And she's usually followed by Dhumavati, the widow, the smoky one, the dark grandmother. And then those are followed by the final three wisdom goddesses, who are Bagalamukhi, the paralyzer, she whose face paralyzes. They have beautiful, wonderful names. That's Bagalamukhi. And Matangi and Kamalatmika, they come last. So usually what you get is this sense that the last two in that standard order are Matangi, the wild outcast poet, and Kamalatmika, who is the lotus goddess of delight. So that's the 10 names. They're very beautiful. Kali, Tara, Tripura Sundari, Bhuvaneshwari, beautiful. Bhairavi, Chinnamasta, those two are very fierce, and Dhumavati also. And then Baglamukhi, Martangi, and Kamalatmika. So that's the usual running of that, the 10 of them. But what I've done is to invite us to see that there are 8 female siddhis. So a siddhi is a power. It's a special kind of power. It's sort of transpersonal, really transcendent kind of power that's supernatural. Okay, so a siddhi is a supernatural power, and it's usually understood that the siddhis are acquired by tapas, by endeavor and discipline and giving up stuff. And there's a whole other course that talks you through the female siddhis. But to understand a little bit about the Mahavidyas and why I'm presenting them in this way, it's really helpful just to have a little overview of the female siddhis. This is a big idea, and it's fairly contentious. So I'm not going to go into the contentious nature of it. I'm just going to tell you that this is the idea, that there are in fact 8 female siddhis. They're not just about the kind of biochemical or biological unfolding of a female body, but they're about the conscious awareness of physical, emotional shifts that arise. So the first one is menarche, or the onset of the first bleed. That's understood as a power, entry, initiation into womanhood. And then from that sense of connecting threshold to womanhood, you're also looking at menstruation, the menstruating years. So menarche is one siddhi, menstruation as it unfolds is another. Female orgasm is another siddhi because of its multidimensional, extraordinary subtlety, its inexhaustibility, its delightfulness. That's a particular kind of siddhi. So menarche, menstruation, female orgasm, and also pregnancy. So conception and pregnancy and birth, they're a whole siddhi of their own. So I'm putting those together, that the pregnancy and the birthing experiences are as power, and that initiate us, that in that case, into motherhood. But it might be initiating into other kinds of mothering, as I speak about later. And then the 5th siddhi I actually describe as loss, as pregnancy loss. The capacity for there to be death within the womb is also a power. So there's life within the womb with fertility and conception, pregnancy and birth. And there is death within the womb. And the siddhi, the power of letting things die and move through, is the siddhi of miscarriage or pregnancy loss. And then the last 3 are connecting with around, if we take birth as a siddhi of its own, so it's related to pregnancy, but if we give labor its own recognition, labor is a powerful force, yeah, and labor resulting in birth is this powerful siddhi, this great supernatural power. A woman is operating at the very limits of what a physical body can do, and that the last 2 kind of connect in 2 different ways. Number 7 would be lactation, which is a remarkable siddhi, a power to nourish from one's own body. And the last one is menopause. So the process of those monthly cycles pausing and the great changes, sometimes through heat and manifestations of energy and completely transformed mental focus, that is also a siddhi. So there are 8 siddhis right there. And I'm inviting you to see those as supernatural powers that initiate us into different states of consciousness. And when you understand those 8 siddhis, it's not just that those things physically happen to us, but it's about bringing conscious awareness into those processes to honor and recognize them as initiatory moments in life. And those are then guided, each one, by a different Mahavidya. So that means you need to change the order of the Mahavidyas. So that's why I put Kali as the first in my order, that we're talking about them in this order. Kali is the goddess of time and change. So she's holding the central place for all of the other siddhis to circulate around. All the other Mahavidyas go around her. Kali at the center, and almost like a big spiral all the way through is Tara's presence. Kali at the center, Tara encircling and spiraling around because she guides us through everything. I've asked her to be the patron saint of menstruality consciousness. So all that we learn from our monthly cycles that then filters out, spirals through like a kind of tracing of her presence as Tara through our lives. So she guides us. She's the patron saint of menstruation and menstruality consciousness. And then comes, as would normally come, Tripura Sundari, Menaki. So if the beauty of the three worlds is about this luscious perfection, this maturation, she's the guardian for Menaki, of our first periods, of our threshold into womanhood, that luscious place. That's where she stands, so does she. And then I have put together the two that are usually last. I've put them as 4 and 5, Kamalatmika and Matangi. So the lotus goddess of delight, all we learn from sexual pleasure and delight, and the wild outcast poet, they come together. Creativity and sexuality are also siddhis, but they run throughout our whole lives. I've then grouped together the sense of pregnancy and birth with Bhuvaneshwari, who's the goddess whose body is the world, so motherhood, initiation into motherhood, and Chinnamasta with lactation and with miscarriage, and also with the postnatal period. So Chinnamasta is like after birth. Bhuvaneshwari is pregnancy and birth, and that's 6 and 7. 8 and 9 are around perimenopause and menopause. So I've assigned Bagalamukhi to the perimenopause and Bhairavi to the menopause. Bagalamukhi, she whose face paralyzes around the perimenopause, and Bhairavi, the fierce one, at menopause, which leaves number 10. The last one is Dhumavati, the widow, the grandmother. She's like the ancestral guide to all of the others. And she comes at the end, marking the 10th Mahavidya, and she's everything we learn from that period of anything to do with loss and loneliness and suffering and tribulation, and that's Dhumavati. So that's all 10 Mahavidyas in a different order. It's a feminist order, and I hope you enjoy meeting them and can feel a little bit about why I've taken some liberties in reorganizing them and appointing them as our guardians to give us protection through each of these phases of our lives.